The 17th of March 1969. Outside Chu Lai, Vietnam. Corporal Eddie Ray Hawkins had just finished duct taping a circular saw blade to the front bumper of a Jeep. He was grinning like a lunatic. The other guys thought he was a lunatic. "Jesus, Hawkins, you turning that Jeep into a damn lawnmower?" "Hell no," Hawkins replied, wiping sweat from his nose. "I'm turning it into a mine sniffer." They all laughed. Until it worked. Hawkins was from Bainbridge, Georgia, a third-generation lineman for the Southern Bell Phone Company before the draft got him. Skinny, wiry, hands like rawhide. He could splice a live wire with his eyes closed and a cigarette in his mouth. In Vietnam, they stuck him in a transportation unit, mostly hauling fuel and ammo up and down the coast. That meant mines. Lots of them. VC sappers loved the roads near Chu Lai. Plant a mine at dusk. Wait for the morning convoy. Boom. Another Jeep. Another body. By March, the 527th Logistics Battalion had already lost 4 vehicles to roadside mines. 1 truck blew sky high. The driver's boot was found on a telephone wire, leg still inside it. So command issued the usual genius solution: drive slower and stay alert. Hawkins wasn't having it. The idea came to him during a routine run to Da Nang. Convoy hit Adelaide. He was parked next to an old ARVN truck, rusting in the weeds. He saw something glitter under the hood, a broken circular saw blade, still bolted to the frame. Looked like they'd been using it as a makeshift plow. It clicked. What if he could scrape the road ahead of the Jeep just deep enough to snag tripwires, kick up fresh dirt, or catch buried metal? He didn't need to explode the mine. Just find it. Or spook it. That night, back at the motor pool, he grabbed an old circular saw blade, 12-inch steel, a boosted comms bracket, 2 feet of chain, a spool of electrical wire. One bad idea. He welded the blade to the bracket, mounted the bracket on a telescoping steel arm, and bolted the whole mess to the front right bumper of his Jeep. The blade would spin using a salvaged fan motor from a destroyed M151. It wasn't elegant, it looked like a Times redneck apocalypse plow. But when he turned it on, that saw sang. And more importantly, it threw sparks when it hit metal. The next morning, the LT came by for inspection. "What the hell is that, Hawkins?" "Mine whisperer, sir." "You serious?" "Dead serious. Let me ride lead on the convoy today. Just 1 run. If it doesn't work, I'll rip it off myself." The LT paused, looked at the Frankenstein bumper blade, then shrugged. "You blow yourself up, Hawkins. It's coming out of your paycheck." March 17th convoy, 12 vehicles. Route 1 north, cutting through a nasty stretch VC loved to mine. Hawkins led in his rigged Jeep, 1 hand on the wheel, 1 thumb on the toggle switch that powered the spinning saw. He cruised at 10 miles an hour. Every few feet, the blade kissed the ground, dragging, scraping. 10 minutes in sparks. The blade struck something metal. He slammed the brakes, waved the convoy to halt. They dismounted, dug carefully. 6 inches down, a freshly laid pressure plate, rigged with C4 and a Soviet MUV fuse, would have killed half the lead truck. Instead, they defused it, marked the find, rolled on. That day, Hawkins found 3 mines. None of them exploded. None of them killed a man. The LT promoted him to lead recon within a week. And that stupid saw blade started showing up on other Jeeps, other routes, other units. They called it Hawkins' Hell Rake. Looked ridiculous, sounded worse. But it worked. And that's how one wiry lineman from Georgia, armed with a fan motor, a saw blade, and a death wish, beat the VC at their own game. The 19th of March, 1969. Chu Lai Motor Pool, 1,430 hours. 2 days after the mine run, Corporal Hawkins stood in front of a red-faced staff sergeant with a clipboard and a mouth like a shotgun. "You're gonna take that buzzsaw death trap off that Jeep right now, Hawkins. That's an order." The motor pool had gotten a surprise visit from an inspection team. An ordnance officer from Da Nang. Some full-bird colonel tagging along, looking for non-compliant modifications to field vehicles. And Hawkins' rig? Well, It stuck out. Spinning blade, wires exposed, engine brackets duct taped to steel pipes. It looked like a Mad Max parade float. Hawkins tried to explain, tried to show the incident reports. "Sir, I found 3 mines with it. Saved lives." The sergeant didn't care. "You want to save lives? Stick to protocol. This isn't the Georgia State Fair. Take it off before chow." Back in his bunk, Hawkins sat fuming. He had 2 options. Rip the whole thing off and pretend it never happened. Run one more test. Quiet. No reports. No drama. He chose number 2. The next morning, March 20th, Convoy headed south to pick up medical supplies from LZ Baldy. 15 vehicles, 2 M35s, a fuel truck, and a Jeep carrying Captain Whitmore's son fresh in from Fort Sill, just assigned to Bravo Company. Kid's name was Alex, Butterbar Lieutenant, fresh boots. Still had the Army tag creases on his uniform. Whitmore was a respected man, old school, West Point. If Hawkins had known the captain's son was in that Jeep, he might have hesitated, might have stayed in the middle of the convoy, kept his mouth shut. But he didn't. He mounted the saw back on at 0400, didn't tell anyone, taped over the wires, rechecked the motor, same saw blade. Still dulled from the last run. At 0630, he pulled out first, leading the convoy like he had 2 days prior. The sun was just crawling over the hills. An hour into the route, a dusty curve cutting through overgrown elephant grass, the saw shrieked. Sparks. Then, the blade jerked sideways. Hawkins hit the brakes. Stepped out. Ground looked normal. Just dirt. But the blade had snagged something. Buried. He waved over the EOD team riding in the rear. 10 minutes of digging revealed a dual-trigger anti-vehicle mine Chinese-made, pressure plus tripwire, meant to kill the second vehicle, not the first. Smart. The second vehicle? That Jeep carrying Alex Whitmore. Word traveled fast. By the time they got back to WWII, Captain Whitmore was waiting. Hawkins stepped off his Jeep, ready for another scolding. Instead, Whitmore walked up slow, deliberate, and held out his hand. "Corporal Hawkins." "Yes, sir. You saved my boy today." Pause. No one breathed. "Keep the blade." Later that week, an exception order came down from Battalion HQ. Verbal only. Nothing in writing. Corporal Hawkins is authorized to operate his forward detection apparatus for the duration of local operations. It wasn't a medal, but it was something better. Next morning, 3 more soldiers showed up at the motor pool, all with busted fan motors and scrap metal in their arms. "You the guy with the mine, sniffer. We need one of them blades." They called it stupid. They called it unsafe. They called it every name in the book, until it saved a captain's son. After that, nobody laughed. The 25th of March, 1969, Razorleaf, 0610 hours. They'd started calling it the Razorleaf Route, a narrow jungle trail the width of a Jeep tire, winding through elephant grass and trees so thick you had to duck to breathe. It wasn't a road. It was a funnel. A perfect death trap. That morning, Corporal Hawkins rolled out in his Jeep, first in line, blade spinning like a damn propeller in front of him. It had a new nickname now. Lucy, short for Lucifer, because she smells like smoke and saves you from hell. Behind him were 2 deuce-and-a-halfs, then a water buffalo unit, and a rear scout Jeep, 18 men total. No air support. No overhead cover. Just mud, humidity, and the sound of steel scraping roots. 0624 hours. They hit the bend that curved around a half-dry riverbed. Same as the maps. Same as 2 days before. But something felt wrong. Birds weren't singing. Too quiet. Too still. Hawkins gripped the wheel tighter. Then Lucy squealed. That awful, high-pitched screech like rust grinding on bone. The blade jerked, caught something deep. It wasn't a mine this time. It was fishing wire, tied between 2 trees, almost invisible in the morning mist. The wire had been connected to a trip pin, which was connected to a tandem booby trap, a Soviet-made TM-46 mine on one side, and on the other, an artillery shell, rigged as a directional blast, engineered by someone who knew exactly how Americans moved. One was meant to blow the lead vehicle. The other? meant to fire sideways straight into the second truck once everyone ran to help. But Lucy had snapped the tripwire before the mine armed, half a second earlier than expected. Hawkins didn't even get out of the Jeep this time. He just stared at the torn wire, dancing in the air. He knew what it was. He didn't speak, didn't radio, didn't breathe. He threw it in reverse. They backed up slow, quiet. Nobody said a word. The EOD team arrived 20 minutes later. It took them 90 minutes to disarm the system. Both charges were live, buried 6 inches beneath mud and moss. The ordnance boys whistled through their teeth. "This one was nasty," one said. "You were a foot away from being hamburger." Back at base, Hawkins sat on the Jeep's hood, smoking Lucky Strikes, watching the rain bead on Lucy's blade. He wasn't shaking. Not anymore. He'd passed scared 3 missions ago. He wasn't cocky either. He was just convinced. This rig wasn't a gimmick. It wasn't a joke. It was working. That night they sent in a drone flyover. What passed for 1 in 69, a gas-powered recon bird the size of a kite. Infrared photos confirmed it. The Razorleaf Trail had been rigged with 6 separate kill points. Not just one. Not just random. The NVA had mapped out every wheel track, every muddy rut. They were adapting, and so was Hawkins. Next day, he welded a second blade on the right side, then a third on the left, not for mines, for wires, fishing line, trip triggers, pressure caps. He didn't want to roll over anything again. He wanted to shred it before it got the chance. Lucy was now 3-headed, ugly as hell, but she was getting meaner, smarter, just like the men who were trying to kill them. The 30th of March 1969, Duke Fo outskirts, Dead Dog Ridge, 0545 hours. 5 days since Lucy snapped the tripwire. 5 days of re-welding, retesting, repacking. The boys were starting to believe she was charmed a miracle Jeep wrapped in rust and luck. Corporal Hawkins didn't like that. "Nothing's lucky," he said. "Just hasn't blown yet." 0603 hours. The convoy moved out. 3 vehicles today stripped down for speed. No supplies, no medkits, no water tanks. Just Hawkins, 2 drivers, a radio op, and 1 green kid with a sawed-off. The trail this time was fresh, too fresh. The NVA had burned back part of the underbrush a week ago. Left ash lines in the dirt, like they were drawing something. The intel boys said it was nothing. Hawkins disagreed. Linglu RE. They were halfway across a low-ridge, dry riverbed below, cliffs on either side. Perfect place for an ambush. That's when Lucy's front blade hit something hard. Not a rock, not a root. It didn't squeal, didn't snap. It just stopped. The blade locked mid-spin, jerked to the right like it had caught on bone. Hawkins slammed the brakes. He stepped out, crouched low, didn't breathe. There it was, half buried in mud. A metal trigger plate the size of a frying pan painted red underneath, disguised with leaves and dung. Soviet design again. OZM 72 bounding mine. Pull the trip, and it jumps 3 feet before it explodes. "Get back," he shouted. Too late. The green kid, the one with the sawed-off, had stepped left, just 6 inches off the trail. It was enough. Click. Everyone heard it. That soft, sick, mechanical cough. The kid froze, looked down, whispered, "Oh God." Then the world went white. It wasn't the bounding mine. That one was still in the dirt. It was a backup charge. Clever bastards had layered it, a Chinese-made DH-10 beneath the bounding plate, meant to catch whoever tried to defuse it. The explosion was thunder without lightning. It ripped the ground open, sent shrapnel through the kid's legs. One of them was gone. The other was worse. Hawkins dove forward, screaming for the radio. The medics weren't close. They never were. He tore his belt off, made a tourniquet. Blood soaked the dirt. The kid wasn't crying. Not yet. Just kept whispering, "Is it still there? Tell me it's still there." Hawkins didn't understand. "Tell me Lucy's okay," the kid said. Lucy had taken a few chunks to the grill. The left blade was warped, bent like a pretzel. But she was upright, alive. The kid passed out before he could smile. Lingzi illing. Dustoff came. Chopper landed crooked on the ridge, blades chopping wet fog. Hawkins loaded the kid. Didn't say much, just gripped his hand and said, "You step left. You'll live right." Then he went back to Lucy, pulled the bent blade off, lit a cigarette, stared at the busted trail like it had insulted his mother. That night, he rebuilt her. By lantern light, no sleep, no music, just blade and weld. The 2nd of April 1969, Lucy rolled again. 3 blades, reinforced hub. And now, she had armor plates welded underneath scrap steel from a burned-out ARVN APC. Ugly as sin. Sounded like a trash compactor. But she kept spinning. Hawkins scratched a name into the Jeep's side with a screwdriver. SPCD, Corbett never stepped twice. The others didn't ask. They just nodded, then followed him back into the trees. April 3, 1969. Tây Đức Trail, near the old French fort, 510 by hours. They called it the Tooth. A ridge, like a broken molar, sharp, jagged, useless for armor. No maps showed it. But the NVA loved it. It gave them a god's-eye view of every patrol below. Nobody wanted that route. Hawkins volunteered. Lucy would go first. Lingwusanjo. Half light. Birds were quiet. That was the first sign. The second was worse. A U.S. helmet on a stick, 20 yards off trail. Just sitting there in the elephant grass, tilted a little to the side, chin strap fluttering in the breeze. A good imitation. Too good. Private Lesniak, new kid, red hair. Indiana drawl pointed it out. Think one of ours lost it. Hawkins didn't answer, just stared at the helmet, then at the dirt around it. No tracks. No drag marks. The grass hadn't bent naturally. It had been parted. They wanted you to see it, wanted you to step off trail to grab it. "You ever seen a helmet like that, Lesniak?" Hawkins finally said. Lesniak squinted. "Looks standard. Liners green, OD straps, real issue." "Exactly," Hawkins said. "Too damn real." He backed Lucy up 10 feet, looped her around. Then he did something nobody expected. He pulled out a helmet decoy of his own. It was something he'd started building after Corbett lost his leg. A busted pot lid, painted olive drab, chin strap from a ration crate. He'd tested it 3 times, never used it live. Today, did. He slid the pot lid helmet onto a fishing pole he'd taped to Lucy's passenger mirror, then extended it like an angler might drop bait into a lake. He lowered it toward the enemy helmet. Carefully. WWII. The second the fake helmet's shadow crossed the tall grass near the planted one, snap, a buried 12-gauge trip flare popped off, followed by 3 shots. Not warning shots, not panic fire. Aimed. Measured. One went through the fishing pole. One clipped Lucy's passenger fender. One punched clean through Lesniak's canteen. No one was hit. They weren't trying to kill the guy who stepped off, Hawkins said later. They were trying to kill the guy smart enough not to. That fake helmet? It wasn't a trap. It was bait. A test to see who thought tactically, who slowed down, who got cautious. And that's who they wanted to kill. Ling Lo Tsi Ling. They swept the area, found a sniper's nest in the tree line, 2 drag marks, shell casings, half-eaten rice in a bamboo cup. He'd been watching all night. Probably thought he had them. But Lucy's bait trick gave him away. Back at base, Hawkins added a new stencil to Lucy's grill. "This Jeep takes the bait." The others didn't laugh. Not this time. Ling Tsi Iwu. They moved out, Hawkins riding slow, hands loose on the wheel. Lesniak said nothing for 3 miles. Then finally, "Sarge, how many fake helmets you think they planted out there?" Hawkins didn't look back. "All of them," he said, "because one good decoy is worth 17 bodies." April 5th, 1969, 06:03 hours. Lao Bao sector, Route Red 16. They called it Sniper Mile. No tree line, no ridge line, no shadows. Just a single road cutting through scorched brush, with too many boot tracks and too few birds. The 101st had lost 3 Jeeps on this stretch in 6 days. One ran over a mine. One was ambushed by RPGs. The last was never found. Sergeant Hawkins didn't flinch. Lucy was light. Under 1,000 pounds, stripped to frame, sandbags off. And unlike the M113S or M35 trucks, Lucy could duck. That was the trick. Linglo Ling. Lesniak rode shotgun again, quiet this time. They drove slower than a man walks, wheels hugging the outer ruts. Hawkins' hands on the wheel like a surgeon threading bone. Lucy had new armor, new turret, new reinforced hull. What she had was instinct. Or rather Hawkins' instinct. WWII. The rear tire kissed something wrong. Soft dirt. Too soft. Not moody. Just placed. Hawkins stopped. Didn't reverse. Didn't touch the brakes again. Just sat there, listening. You don't see pressure plates in the jungle. You feel them. There's a kind of tension in the soil, like it's waiting to exhale. Hawkins had felt that twice before. Both times, someone else died. Lesniak, he said, barely above a whisper. Out. Now. Left side only. Crawl under, not over. Lesniak hesitated, then obeyed, heart racing, mouth dry. He rolled off Lucy like she was a sleeping bear. Hawkins followed. On his stomach, he crawled to the front axle, unstrapped Lucy's tow hook, pulled out 20 feet of commo wire, looped it under the chassis, made a tether line to the nearest tree, tied it tight. He and Lesniak backed up 30 yards behind the brush line. Pray it's directional, Hawkins muttered. He pulled. Lucy didn't budge. He pulled again harder. With a low creak, she lurched. Boom. The blast was muffled not because the mine was weak, but because it detonated low. The front left tire popped. Shrapnel scattered backward in a shallow arc, missing both men. The mine was designed for APCs. For weight. For arrogance. Lucy had no weight, and Hawkins had no arrogance. Linglo RR. They approached slowly. Smoke still rising. Lucy's fender torn like paper. Tire shredded. But she was alive. Hawkins crouched by the blast crater. Under the soil. A Soviet TM-46. 5.5 kilograms of TNT. Pressure plate intact, cracked, not crushed. The Jeep had kissed the edge. Any faster, any heavier. He didn't say it. Didn't need to. Lesniak knelt beside him. That mine was ready to kill something a lot bigger. Hawkins just said. She bent her knees and ducked. He meant Lucy. Linglo woo-woo. They rigged the spare tire. Took an hour. Half of that spent clearing more fake tracks, decoys, tension wires that led to nothing. Psychological warfare. Minefields were never just about explosions. They were about stalling time, building fear. Make you slow down. Make you question everything. But Lucy kept moving. Not because she was fast, but because she knew when to bow her head. Back at Firebase Echo, a mechanic saw the shredded fender, the black dust across her front grille. Said, "What'd she hit?" Hawkins answered, "Just a bad idea buried in the dirt." The mechanic laughed, then saw Hawkins wasn't joking. That night, Hawkins painted something new on Lucy's hood, the one that Kniels survives. Not everyone understood it, but the ones who'd been down Route Red 16, they nodded. Hard. April 6th, 1969, 0419 hours. Firebase Echo, outskirts. They hit it again. Second shot. Same helmet. Same hole. Different sniper. But this time, it wasn't surprise. It was bait. Hawkins had waited 42 hours for it. They'd set it up after midnight. Same battered steel pot. Same stick. But this time, rigged with wire, hooked to a tin can filled with pebbles. A trip line of noise. Tied just inside the clay wall of a dummy observation post. The first time had been luck. A test shot. A warning. The sniper was feeling the line. This time, it was confidence. He thought he'd already won. Ling CRR. Crack. 7.6. 2 millimeters again. The shot was clean, precise, same arc, same angle. But this time, when the bullet ripped through the helmet, the can rattled. Pebbles scattered across corrugated tin. The sound snapped through the dark like a firecracker in a church. Hawkins heard it from 30 meters away. in the drainage trench, covered in leeches and mud and silence. He didn't blink. He had 10 seconds. Lesniak was crouched beside him, clutching the XM-21 sniper rifle like it was alive. They'd calculated the arc, traced the bullet's path, mapped out the 3 most likely hide spots, and they'd focused on the least obvious one. An old termite mound, pockmarked with holes, looked like nature, smelled like rot. But inside, beneath the foliage, was glass. Lens glass. Scope glass. Enemy eyes. Lingsu Arsan. Hawkins whispered. Window 2. Left side. Wait for the twitch. Lesniak locked in. The jungle held its breath. Then, a flicker. A silhouette. Not a head. Just the faint shimmer of breath on glass. The sniper was leaning forward, ready for a third shot. Lesniak exhaled. Crack. His own shot was louder. American rifles always barked meaner. The termite mound shuddered. A dark figure slumped sideways, rifle clattering out of the hole. Hawkins moved first, crawled the 30 meters in silence. Didn't speak until he was close enough to smell cordite. The VC sniper was still breathing, barely. Young, maybe Dvicet. Malnourished. One boot missing. The enemy looked up at Hawkins, eyes glassy, confused, like he hadn't expected someone to crawl toward him. He tried to speak. All Hawkins said was, "You should have skipped the second shot." Then he pressed his hand against the boy's chest and waited for the breath to stop. Ling CCC. Lesniak found Hawkins still crouched there, looking at the body. Didn't gloat, didn't joke. Just said, "That makes 3 snipers in 5 days." Hawkins nodded, then picked up the enemy rifle, a Type 56 clone with a chipped stock and a French hunting scope duct taped to the rail. Brought it back, not as a trophy, as evidence, proof that the helmet worked, proof that bait could buy time. Lingwulingsan. Sunrise cracked the horizon. Firebase echo stirred. A lieutenant asked Hawkins if he'd seen anything strange during the night. Hawkins said, "Just a ghost. Come back for a second try," and walked off without another word. Later that morning, Lesniak scribbled something on the back of a C ration box. He handed it to Hawkins. Helmet trick. Tway confirmed. Ain rattled can. Null regrets. Hawkins laughed the first time in days. Said nothing, but tacked the scrap to Lucy's dashboard anyway. That day, word spread through Echo's sniper pit. They'd beaten the enemy at his own game, with a helmet and a can full of pebbles. And for once, it wasn't luck. It was a trap, sprung by patience, and answered with steel. April 6th, 1969, 1,800 hours. Firebase Echo. It wasn't supposed to get noticed. The helmet was just a joke at first. A grunt's trick. One man's way to flip the script. But by sundown, 2 things had happened. First, the kill count from that hole hit 5. Second, a lieutenant colonel from Division HQ landed in a Huey and asked to speak with whoever's running this ghost helmet business. Captain Miller found Hawkins at the motor pool, elbow deep in Lucy's transmission fluid. "You got a minute?" "Nope," Hawkins said, not looking up. "Too bad. You just got volunteered." 15 minutes later, Hawkins stood in the firebase's makeshift ops tent, smelling like diesel and blood, arms crossed, grease on his nose. The colonel's stiff posture, fresh starch, too clean for real work, was tapping a notepad. "Your unit's been pulling off some unusually successful countersnipe operations." No answer. "Intel says the NVA's sniper teams are avoiding Echo Sector altogether now." Still nothing. "We're hearing rumors about a helmet decoy." Hawkins just said, "Rumors ain't regulation." The colonel squinted, smiled thin. "Son, I don't care if it's regulation or voodoo. If it works, I want it documented. Field doctrine, visuals, tactical breakdown, the whole works." He handed Hawkins a form. "Initial here." Hawkins didn't even read it, just looked him dead in the eye and said, "This thing only works if they don't know about it. So you write it down, pass it around. Some hotshot in Long Bin sticks a reflector panel on a training dummy, and next week Charlie figures it out. I'm saying keep it quiet. Let us use it while it still works." The colonel was quiet for a second. Then, "You're right, but I still need a report." So Hawkins wrote something on a blank MRE box, tore it off, and handed it over. Helmet decoy tactic used April 26. 5 confirmed, multiple saved. Further details available when war ends. That night, Captain Miller leaned on the tailgate of Hawkins' Jeep, opened a warm can of hams and said, "You know they're gonna steal it, right?" "Yep." "You care?" "Nope." "Then what's the plan?" "Use it until they stop falling for it. Then make something worse." Meanwhile, Lesniak had gone full MacGyver. He was testing painted helmets, toucan rattlers, broken mirror shards as visual bait. Even tried a helmet with a lit cigarette stuck in it. Didn't work. Drew fire instantly. They went back to the basics. 1 stick, 1 helmet, 1 stillness. April 7th, daybreak. 2 new grunts joined the squad. One asked where the snipers hung out. Lesniak pointed at the trench with the muddy helmet. "That's headquarters. Just wait there." He laughed. But Hawkins didn't. He looked at the kid and said, "You wait there long enough. You better be ready to shoot second." "Second?" "Yeah, because the guy who shoots first is already dead." Word kept spreading. Not through paperwork, through whispers. Some squad at Echo's got a ghost helmet. It draws fire. Snipers shooting at air. Getting nailed in return. Whole trench quiet except for 1 helmet. It wasn't doctrine. It wasn't sanctioned. It was fear turned inside out. At Division HQ, the story became a joke. They called it the dumb helmet trick. Then Hawkins' team stacked their 6th kill using it. And someone whispered, "Stupid or not, it's working." By the end of the week, 2 more firebases copied it. 1 failed. Their helmet was too clean. Brand new. No dents, no soot. Obvious decoy. The other succeeded because they used the actual helmet of a fallen friend, covered in blood. Real. That was the lesson. If you wanted it to work, the helmet had to belong to someone, had to carry weight, had to look like loss. Because in war, the enemy doesn't fear tricks. They fear what looks real and dies twice. April 10th, 1969 Firebase Echo, 0630 hours. The helmet should have been dead by now. After 7 confirmed kills, all clean, Hawkins expected the NVA to catch on. But they didn't. Not yet. Because every time that stupid dented pot popped above the trench line, someone still pulled the trigger. And every time, they died. Kill #7 came fast. An enemy sniper took the bait again, this time from the tree line south of the Paddy Dyke. Lesniak was already in position, watching, waiting, breathing slow. The shot came, 7.62 millimeters, supersonic crack. And before the echo even faded, Lesniak fired once. Dropped him cold. Distance, 420 yards. That made 4 NVA snipers in 6 days killed by 1 trick. A helmet, a stick, a silence that didn't blink. But here's the thing. The helmet wasn't a tool anymore. It had become a ghost. Every man in the squad treated it like it had a soul, a name, a will of its own. They didn't touch it without nodding first. Didn't leave it in the trench without saying something under their breath. Didn't laugh at it anymore. Even Lesniak Loudmouth from Detroit started calling it Reaper. "Reaper's thirsty today," he said. "Better feed him, lead." Word spread again, not up the chain across. Grunts started sending field mail. Echo's got a haunted helmet. No scope, no hands, still kills. Watch the trench. The helmet aims back. Even the comms guys, bored to death most days, started tuning into Echo's frequency just to hear kill counts. Target flanked. Helmet still up. Confirm. 1 more down. A visiting AP photographer came by on April 11th. Snapped a photo of Hawkins leaning against the trench wall. Helmet propped above the dirt. Jungle behind him blurred and angry. Caption ran in the stars and stripes. The bait. They didn't mention names. But grunts across I-Corps saw that photo and said, "That's the helmet. That's the one." Later that night, Captain Miller said, "You realize you turned a steel pot into a legend?" Hawkins shrugged. "It ain't the pot. It's the pause." "What pause?" "That half second where the enemy thinks they've won. Then they don't get another thought. The next day, something changed. The helmet got shot. Not the stick, not the air. The helmet, a clean hole dead center, through the old burn mark. Straight through the bloodstain from Operation Rolling Tide. Lesniak picked it up, turned it over. Reaper got kissed. Nobody laughed. They stared at the hole, like they were looking at a body. Hawkins didn't fix it, didn't patch it, didn't paint it. He just turned it slightly. So the hole faced the enemy, like an open eye. That afternoon, Kill Height and Kill 9 came in the same hour. Both fired at the helmet. Both missed the real threat behind it. By nightfall, the squad started leaving rations near it. Unopened cans. A lucky strike. A folded photo of a girl in Saigon, like they were paying tribute to a decoy. But maybe it wasn't a decoy anymore. Maybe it was something worse. Something better. Something that looked like bait and bit back. April 14th, 1969, 0400 hours. The jungle was too quiet. Not the good kind of quiet, not the we're clear kind. The wet breath, spine-itching kind. The kind that made the birds shut up. The kind where even the rats stayed underground. Lesniak felt it first. Then Martinez. Then Hawkins. Something was coming. They didn't need orders. Didn't need a radio. They just loaded extra mags. At 0443, it started. Sappers, mortars, AK bursts. The whole eastern wire lit up. Tracers arced over the trench like red meteors. Someone yelled. Someone screamed. Someone was already bleeding. But Hawkins didn't flinch. He crawled to the ridge trench. Stuck the helmet up on the old busted stick, still cracked, still bleeding rust. The helmet spun slightly in the wind, caught moonlight, reflected it like a dead man's eye, and the jungle saw it. The first burst came from 100 yards out. AK fire wild, angry, blind. 12 rounds, all into the helmet. Lesniak whispered, "Reaper's working." Then came the real wave. 4 NVA snipers, 2 flanking, 2 direct. They fired in perfect sync, all at the helmet. Martinez spotted the flash from the bamboo gap, took the first shot, dropped one. Hawkins found the second high in a tree, trying to reposition. He didn't make it. The third came low, crawling in mud. Got too close. Grenade. Helmet still standing. 17 confirmed bullets hit that helmet. 17 that didn't hit men. 17 that missed hearts, lungs, necks. 17 chances to die, traded for a dented pot on a stick. By sunrise, the trench smelled like cordite, sweat, and copper. 8 NVA dead. 3 snipers. 0 American casualties. After the medics cleared out, and the sun broke over Firebase Echo, Lesniak sat down beside the helmet, picked it up. It was barely holding together. 2 holes. Multiple cracks. Paint gone. Strap burned. He said, "Can't use it again." Hawkins didn't answer. He just walked to the center of the trench, dug a small hole, and buried the helmet. Not for show, for real. Like a body. No ceremony. No flag. Just silence. A few nods. Martinez tossed a bullet casing on the dirt. Lesniak dropped a lucky strike. That was enough. Nobody wrote it in the logbook. Nobody filled out a commendation. But every man who'd fought that night knew. That helmet had taken fire 17 times. That helmet had saved their lives. Asterisk. Asterisk. 20 years later, 1989. A historian doing research on field improvisation in Vietnam stumbled on a footnote in a squad journal. Decoy helmet used in defensive op, Echo Ridge, April 1969. Drew sniper fire 17x, confirmed 4 kills. Buried trench center after op. No ID on original installer. The historian tried to track it down. No name. No photo. No citation. Just a rumor. A pot on a stick. In 2003, a retired sergeant named Lesniak, now gray, wrinkled, with lungs half gone, visited the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. He brought a helmet. Beat up. Cracked. Not the original, but close. He left it at the wall. "No noche." Just 3 words scratched inside with a knife. It watched back. That's the story. Not official, not decorated, but real. A helmet, a stick. A soldier who couldn't stand losing one more friend. 17 bullets wasted. 17 men still breathing. And nobody ever knew his name. You know it now. If this story moved, you pass it on. Because the war isn't just medals and maps. Sometimes, it's a stupid helmet that refused to die.